The stars looked different from here. Ambassador Zektar pressed his crystalline hand against the viewing port of the research ship Harmony's Promise and watched the strange yellow star grow larger. His body made soft chiming sounds as he moved, a sign of his nervous energy. Ambassador, we are detecting unusual readings from this system. Dr. Vexini called from across the bridge. The ethereal scientist floated near her instruments, her translucent blue form shimmering with concern. There is a planet here that shows signs of life, but the radiation levels are very high. Captain Mordun clicked his mandibles together, a gesture that showed he was thinking. The insectoid commander had led many exploration missions, but something felt wrong about this place. High radiation means dangerous life forms. We should be careful. The three aliens represented the best of the Galactic Council. Zektar was a skilled diplomat who had helped make peace between warring worlds. Dr. Vexini was one of the galaxy's smartest scientists. Captain Mordun had never lost a crew member in 20 years of deep space exploration. Together with their crew of 200 beings from dozens of different worlds, they were exploring new regions of space to find new friends for the Council. But then everything went wrong. The ship's engine started making strange noises. Warning lights flashed red all over the bridge. The floor began to shake so hard that Dr. Vexini had to grab onto a wall to keep from falling. "Engine core failure," shouted the chief engineer, a nervous tentacled being named Floxy. "We are losing power fast." Captain Morden ran to his command chair. "Send out an emergency signal. All ships, any ships, we need help." Zektar felt his crystalline body grow cold with fear. They were far from any Council worlds. No one would reach them in time. The ship was breaking apart around them, and they were going to die in this empty space. But someone heard their call. 3 hours later, Dr. Vexini looked up from her instruments with confusion. "Captain, I am detecting 3 ships approaching us very fast." "How fast?" Captain Morden asked. "Too fast," she whispered. "They are moving at speeds that should kill anyone inside them." The ships that appeared on their screens looked wrong. They were not smooth and curved like Council ships. Instead, they looked rough and angular, like they were built for war. They had thick armor and many weapons. Most strange of all, they were moving through space like they did not care about the dangers. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Defiant," came a voice over their communications. "We received your distress call. We are here to help." Zektar had never heard of Earth. He quickly searched the Council databases while Captain Morden replied to the strange ships. What he found made his crystalline body ring with. Alarm, but Earth was listed as a Class 12 death world. The planet was covered in deadly radiation from its star. It had poisonous air, violent weather, and creatures that killed each other for food. The notes in the database were full of warnings. "Species from death worlds are typically aggressive," he read. "They solve problems with violence. They do not value life the way civilized beings do. Approach with extreme caution." "Captain," Zektar said quietly, "these beings are from a death world. They might be dangerous." Before Captain Morden could answer, the human ships were already next to them. Through the viewing port, they could see small ships leaving the human vessels. The humans were coming aboard whether the aliens wanted them or not. "Stand by for boarding," Commander Chen's voice said. "We'll have you fixed up in no time." Dr. Vexini watched her instruments with growing amazement. "The humans are not wearing full protective suits. The radiation levels between our ships should kill them, but they are acting like it is nothing." The first human to step onto their bridge was Commander Chen herself. She was tall and strong-looking, with short brown hair and scars on her hands that showed she was used to dangerous work. Behind her came more humans, all carrying strange tools and moving with confidence that frightened the aliens. "Okay, what's the situation?" Chen asked, looking around the bridge like she owned it. Captain Morden tried to stand tall, but the human was not impressed by his authority. "Our engines have failed. We are losing life support. Many of my crew are hurt." "Right," Chen said, and started giving orders to her people. "Martinez, get down to engineering and see what we're working with. Webb, start treating the wounded. Johnson, check their life support systems." The humans spread out through the ship like they had done this 1,000 times before. They did not ask permission. They did not wait for explanations. They just started fixing things. Zektar watched a human engineer named Martinez disappear into a shaft that was filled with steam and sparks. Any Council engineer would need protective equipment and safety checks before entering such a dangerous area. But Martinez just grabbed his tools and crawled right in. Is he going to be okay? Zektar asked Commander Chen. Chen shrugged. Martinez has been in worse places. He'll be fine. Dr. Vexini floated over to where a human medic named Dr. Webb was treating injured crew members. She watched in amazement as he worked on beings whose biology was completely different from his own. He did not have the right equipment or training, but he was keeping them alive with simple tools and clever thinking. How do you know how to treat a crystalline injury? She asked him. Dr. Webb looked up from bandaging Zektar's injured assistant. I don't really. But blood is blood and broken bones are broken bones. You figure it out as you go. This answer should have scared Dr. Vexini, but somehow it made her feel better. These humans did not wait for perfect conditions or complete information. They just acted. Over the next few hours, the aliens watched the humans work with growing amazement. They did not complain about the dangerous conditions. They did not ask for better tools or safer working areas. They just fixed whatever was broken and moved on to the next problem. When Martinez emerged from the engine shaft, his clothes were burned and his face was black with soot. But he was smiling. Good news, he told Commander Chen. Their engines aren't completely dead. I can get them running again, but someone will need to manually restart the core from the inside. How dangerous? Chen asked. Pretty dangerous. Whoever goes in there will get a heavy dose of radiation. Probably won't kill them, but they'll be sick for a while. Zektar stepped forward. That is too dangerous. We cannot ask you to risk your life for strangers. Commander Chen looked at him like he had said something funny. We came out here to help you. Of course we're going to take some risks. That's what help means. She turned to Martinez. I'll go in. Actually, Commander, said another human, I'm smaller. I can get in and out faster. Less radiation exposure. Soon 3 different humans were volunteering for the dangerous job. They were not afraid. They were not even thinking about it very hard. To them, risking their lives to save strangers was just normal. Captain Morden watched this with growing confusion. Everything the database said about Deathworld species was wrong. These humans were not violent or selfish. They were the bravest beings he had ever seen. As the humans worked to save their ship, Zektar began to wonder what other things the Galactic Council had gotten wrong about these strange, fearless people from the deadly world called Earth. The Harmony's promise was dying. Ambassador Zektar could feel it in the way the ship groaned and shook around him. Metal walls were cracking. Pipes were bursting and filling hallways with steam. The artificial gravity kept failing, making everyone float and then suddenly crash back down. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge talking into her radio. Her voice was calm, but Zektar could see the worry in her eyes. Defiant, this is Chen. The alien ship is breaking apart faster than we thought. We need to move everyone to our ships now. Understood, Commander, came the reply. But their life support systems won't work on our vessels. Different air, different pressure, different everything. Dr. Vexini floated closer to Chen, her translucent form flickering with fear. Commander, many of our people cannot survive in your environment, and your people cannot survive in ours for very long. Chen looked around the bridge at the aliens. There were crystallines like Zektar, whose bodies needed specific mineral air. There were ethereals like Dr. Vexini, who needed low gravity and thin atmosphere. There were dozens of other species, each with different needs. Then we'll have to make it work, Chen said simply. Captain Morden clicked his mandibles nervously. Commander, it may be impossible. Our biologies are too different. Nothing's impossible, Chen replied. Just difficult, she got on her radio again. All teams, listen up. We're doing a full evacuation, but we need to modify our ships as we go. I want environmental engineers working on life support modifications. I want medics learning alien biology on the fly. And I want everyone to remember that we're not leaving anyone behind. What happened next amazed the aliens. The humans split up into teams and spread through the dying ship. They did not wait for perfect plans or ideal conditions. They just started working. Engineering Chief Rosa Santos led a team to the engine room, which was now flooded with deadly radiation. The Geiger counters she carried were clicking so fast they sounded like rain on metal. This place will kill anyone in about 10 minutes, she told her team over the radio. What about you, Chief? Asked one of her engineers. I've got maybe 15 minutes before it gets really bad, Santos replied. That should be enough. She walked into the radioactive engine room alone. Zektar watched the human readings on Dr. Vexini's instruments. The radiation levels were incredible. Any council species would die in seconds in that environment. But Santos just kept working, her hands steady as she reconnected power systems and rerouted failing circuits. In the medical bay, Dr. Marcus Webb was performing miracles. He had never treated alien injuries before, but he was learning fast. When he found a wounded tentacled being with internal bleeding, he studied the creature's anatomy for exactly 30 seconds before starting surgery. His blood is green and his heart has 4 chambers instead of 2. Webb muttered to himself as he worked. But the principles are the same. Stop the bleeding, repair the damage, keep him alive. The tentacled being's family watched in terror as the human cut into their loved one with primitive tools. But Webb's hands never shook, and his confidence was infectious. Meanwhile, other humans were running through parts of the ship that were on fire, venting atmosphere, or structurally collapsing. They carried alien crew members who were too hurt to walk. They crawled through twisted metal to reach trapped survivors. They did things that should have been impossible. Zektar followed Commander Chen as she made her way to the ship's nursery, where the youngest members of the crew were kept. The hallway leading there had lost its atmosphere. It was a vacuum now, deadly to any life form. "The children," Zektar said, his crystalline voice ringing with despair. "We cannot reach them." Chen looked at the sealed door at the end of the airless hallway. Then she looked at her suit's oxygen gauge. "How long can those kids survive without air?" she asked. "Maybe 20 minutes, Zektar replied. Chen nodded. "I can make it there and back in 15. She put on her helmet and opened the airlock. "Commander, you cannot," Captain Mordun protested. "If your suit fails, you will die." "If I don't go, the kids will die," Chen replied. "That's not really a choice." She walked into the vacuum. Zektar watched through the airlock window as Chen moved through the deadly hallway. Her suit was thick and clumsy, but she moved with purpose. When she reached the nursery door, she had to use manual controls because the power was out. It took precious minutes to get the door open. Inside, she found 12 young aliens from 6 different species. They were scared and crying, but alive. Chen gathered them up, carrying the smallest ones and leading the others by the hand. The trip back took longer because she was moving more carefully with the children. Zektar watched her oxygen gauge drop lower and lower. By the time she reached the airlock, her suit's warning alarms were screaming, but she had saved them all. In the engine room, Santos was finishing her work. The radiation had made her sick. Her hands were shaking and her skin was pale, but she had managed to stabilize the ship's core long enough for everyone to evacuate safely. "Santos, get out of there now," Chen's voice crackled over the radio. "Almost done, Commander," Santos replied, her voice weak but determined. "Just need to reroute one more power coupling." She collapsed just as she finished the repair. 2 other humans ran into the radioactive room to carry her out, even though they knew it would hurt them too. By the time all the aliens were safely aboard the human ships, Santos was unconscious from radiation poisoning. Dr. Webb was treating 20 different alien species with equipment that was never designed for them. And every human on the rescue teams was exhausted, hurt, or sick from the dangerous conditions they had worked in. But they had done it. All 200 aliens were alive and safe. As the Harmony's promise finally broke apart and scattered into space, Zektar stood in the human ship's observation deck, watching the debris float away. Commander Chen stood next to him, her arm in a sling from an injury she had gotten while rescuing the children. "Why did you do this?" Zektar asked quietly. "You could have left us to die. It would have been safer for you." Chen looked at him with surprise. "We heard your distress call. That means you needed help. What else were we supposed to do?" "Most species would have sent a message to their government and waited for official approval," Zektar said. "The rescue operation would have taken weeks to organize." "Weeks?" Chen shook her head. "You would have been dead in hours. Sometimes you can't wait for permission to do the right thing." Dr. Vexini floated over to join them. Her color was brighter now, a sign that she was feeling better. "Commander, my instruments show that Chief Santos is very sick from the radiation. Will she recover?" "Eventually," Chen said. "Santos is tough. She'll be back on her feet in a few weeks." "She risked her life for people she had never met," Dr. Vexini said softly. "People who are not even the same species as her." "That's what people do," Chen replied simply. But Zektar was beginning to understand that this was not what most people did. This was what humans did, and that made them very special indeed. The news of the rescue spread quickly through the galaxy. Ambassador Zektar watched the reports on the communication networks from his room aboard the human ship Defiant. Most of the reports got it wrong. Reckless Deathworlders risk lives in dangerous stunt, read one headline. Human aggression nearly causes diplomatic incident, said another. The news writers made it sound like the humans had caused the problem instead of solving it. Dr. Vexini floated into his room, carrying a datapad with more reports. The Council's official statement says we were rescued by well-meaning but unpredictable beings from a dangerous world, she told him. They are warning other ships to be careful around humans. Zektar's crystalline body chimed with frustration. They do not understand what really happened here. No, Dr. Vexini agreed. They do not. But 3 days later, something happened that would change everything. The ship's alarm started wailing. Commander Chen's voice came over the speakers. All hands to stations. We've got a massive ion storm heading for the Kepler system. 3 populated worlds are in its path. Zektar and Dr. Vexini hurried to the bridge. Captain Morden was already there, studying the readings with growing horror. How bad is it? Chen asked her science officer. Very bad, Commander, the officer replied. The storm is huge. It's carrying enough electromagnetic energy to destroy the atmospheric processors on all 3 planets. Without those processors, the planet's air will become poisonous in a matter of days. Dr. Vexini looked at her own instruments and gasped. The ethereal homeworld of Whisper is in that system. So is the crystalline colony of Harmony Prime and the tentacled settlement on Gentle Waters. There are billions of people on those worlds. Chen turned to her communications officer. Get me the Galactic Council Emergency Response Center. The answer that came back was not good. The Council's evacuation fleet was on the other side of the galaxy, dealing with a different crisis. It would take them at least 6 weeks to reach the Kepler system. 6 weeks? Chen stared at the screen in disbelief. Those people will be dead in 6 days. Commander, said her science officer, the storm will hit the system in 48 hours. Even if we left right now, we could barely make it in time. Zektar watched Chen's face as she thought. He could see her doing calculations in her head, weighing risks and possibilities. How many people are we talking about? She asked. Whisper has 2 billion ethereals, Dr. Vexini said quietly. Harmony Prime has 4 billion crystallines. Gentle Waters has 800 million tentacled beings. Almost 7 billion people, Chen said. She looked at her crew. Opinions? It's impossible, Commander, said her first officer, a tough-looking woman named Martinez. Our 3 ships can't evacuate 7 billion people. We don't have the space, the life support, or the time. Besides, added the science officer, those worlds are going to be hell when the storm hits. The electromagnetic pulses will destroy most electronics. The radiation will be deadly. The weather will be violent beyond anything we've ever seen. Commander Chen nodded. So it's dangerous and probably impossible. Yes, Commander, Chen smiled. Sounds like a job for humans. She turned to the communications officer. Get me every human ship within 10 light years. Military, civilian, cargo, passenger, I don't care. Tell them we need volunteers for a rescue mission. Commander, Captain Morden said carefully. This is madness. You cannot save 7 billion people with a few ships. Maybe not, Chen admitted, but we can try. And trying is better than doing nothing. Within 6 hours, 15 more human ships had arrived. They were not all military vessels like the Defiant. Some were cargo ships, some were passenger liners, and some were private yachts. But they all had human crews, and they had all come to help. The plan Chen came up with was crazy. The human ships would split up and go to all 3 threatened worlds. They would land during the storm and evacuate as many people as possible. Then they would fly to safe worlds and come back for more. The electromagnetic pulses will kill our electronics, warned Captain Lisa Zhang of the cargo ship Horizon. We'll be flying blind. The radiation will make everyone sick, added Dr. James Park from the research vessel Discovery. The atmospheric conditions will tear our ships apart, said Commander Torres of the military transport. Valiant Chen looked around at all the human captains. So we're all in agreement. This is a terrible plan with almost no chance of success. Every single human captain nodded. Good, Chen said. Let's get started. The first world they reached was Whisper, home of the ethereals. The ion storm had already begun. Lightning flashed constantly across the sky. The air was filled with electromagnetic energy that made all their instruments go crazy. Dr. Vexini watched from the bridge as the human ships descended through the storm. Any sane pilot would have turned back. The energy discharges were strong enough to kill a ship's crew. The wind was so violent it could tear a vessel apart, but the humans just kept flying. Captain Zhang landed her cargo ship, Horizon, in the middle of a city where buildings were already starting to collapse from the electromagnetic pulses. She opened her cargo bays and started loading ethereal families inside. Her ship shook and sparked from the electrical energy, but she kept working. Dr. Park modified his research ship to carry ethereals safely. He had to completely rebuild his life support systems in the middle of the storm, working with tools that kept malfunctioning from the electromagnetic interference. Commander Torres used her military transport to evacuate a hospital full of sick ethereals. She flew through lightning strikes that should have destroyed her ship, navigating by instinct when all her instruments failed. And this was just the first day. On the second world, Harmony Prime, the crystalline colony, was in chaos. The ion storm was interfering with the crystallines' natural ability to communicate with each other. They were scared and confused, unable to organize an evacuation. Commander Chen landed in the middle of a city where the very ground was cracking from seismic activity caused by the storm. She and her crew went building to building, gathering crystalline families and leading them to safety. When the storm knocked out the power to a crystalline nursery, trapping hundreds of children inside, Chen personally crawled through collapsed tunnels to reach them. She carried out child after child, even though the electromagnetic energy was making her sick. On the third world, Gentle Waters, the tentacled beings were facing their worst nightmare. The storm was poisoning their ocean homes with radiation. They were dying in the water they needed to survive. Captain Martinez took her ship underwater, something it was never designed to do. She rescued entire tentacled families from their flooding cities, modifying her ship's systems on the fly to create environments where the water-breathing aliens could survive. For 3 days and nights, the humans worked without rest. They flew through conditions that would kill most pilots. They fixed broken systems with spare parts and determination. They modified their ships to carry alien species their vessels were never designed to handle. They did not stop. They did not give up. They did not even complain. By the time the storm passed, they had saved over 6 million beings. Not 7 billion, that would have been impossible. But 6 million people were alive because the humans had refused to accept that it could not be done. As the rescue ships limped back to safe space, their crews exhausted and their vessels damaged, Zektar stood on the bridge of the Defiant and watched the last transport ships leaving the storm zone. Why do they do this? He asked Commander Chen, who was bandaging a burn on her arm from an electrical discharge. Do what? She asked. Risk everything for strangers, fight impossible odds, never give up, even when any reasonable person would quit. Chen thought about this for a moment. I guess it's because we don't see them as strangers, she said finally. They're just people who need help. And when people need help, you help them. That's what makes life worth living. Zektar looked out at the human ships, battered but victorious, carrying millions of saved lives to safety. He was beginning to understand that these humans were not just brave. They were something the galaxy had never seen before. They were heroes. The refugee camps were a mess. 6 million beings from 3 different worlds, all crowded onto emergency stations and temporary habitats. The Galactic Council was trying to help, but they were not prepared for so many people needing so much help so quickly. Ambassador Zektar walked through the camps with Commander Chen, watching the chaos. Ethereal children were crying because they could not find their parents in the confusion. Crystalline elders were growing dim without the proper minerals they needed to stay healthy. Tentacled families were suffering in the dry air of the emergency stations. The Council relief ships will be here in 2 weeks, Zektar told Chen. Then we can start moving people to proper housing. Chen stopped walking and looked at him. 2 weeks? These people can't wait 2 weeks. Commander, we have done all we can, Captain Morden said, catching up to them. You and your people have already saved millions of lives. No one expects you to do more, but Chen was not listening. She was watching a group of young ethereals huddled together near a broken air recycling unit. Their translucent forms were flickering weakly, a sign that they were very scared. Where are their families? She asked. Dr. Vexini floated over, her own form dim with sadness. We do not know. When the storm hit Whisper, many families were separated. Some children were at school, some were visiting relatives, some were just playing in different parts of the city. Now they are alone. Chen knelt down next to the young ethereals. They backed away from her at first, but she spoke to them gently. She could not speak their language, but her voice was kind and calm. "What do they need?" she asked Dr. Vexeny. "To find their parents, but that could take weeks. The refugee records are incomplete, and many families are scattered across different stations." Chen stood up and activated her radio. "All human personnel, this is Commander Chen. I need volunteers for search teams. We're going to find these kids' families." "Commander," her first officer's voice came through the radio. "Our orders are to return to Earth for debriefing. Command wants us back in 72 hours. "Then Command will have to wait," Chen replied. "We're not leaving until these children are back with their families." What happened next amazed the aliens. Human volunteers from all the rescue ships formed search teams. They went through every refugee camp, every emergency station, every temporary shelter in the system. They carried pictures of the lost children and asked every adult they met if they recognized them. It was slow, difficult work. The humans did not speak the alien languages very well. The computer translation systems were overloaded and unreliable. Many of the refugees were too traumatized to give clear answers, but the humans did not give up. Dr. Webb organized medical teams to treat aliens who were getting sick in the human-designed emergency shelters. He had learned a lot about alien biology during the rescue, and now he was teaching other humans how to care for different species. When he found that crystalline children needed specific sound frequencies to stay healthy, he worked with the ship's engineers to modify the emergency shelter's audio systems. When he discovered that young tentacled beings were dying because the air was too dry, he figured out how to create humidity chambers using ship parts and emergency supplies. Meanwhile, Chief Santos was supposed to be recovering from her radiation poisoning, but when she saw that the refugee camps did not have enough power for proper life support, she got out of her hospital bed and started working. "Santos, you should be resting," Dr. Webb told her as she rewired power systems in the main refugee station. "These people need electricity more than I need rest," she replied, her hand steady despite her illness. She worked for 18 hours straight, connecting emergency generators and rerouting power cables, until every shelter in the camp had full life support. Then she collapsed again, and Dr. Webb had to drag her back to the medical bay. The most amazing thing happened on the 4th day. A human engineer named James Park was working in the section of the camp where the crystalline refugees were staying. The crystallines were having trouble because the emergency shelters were not designed for their specific needs. Their bodies required certain mineral particles in the air, and without them they were slowly getting weaker. Park studied the problem for hours. He tested air samples, examined crystalline physiology data, and ran calculations on his portable computer. Finally, he had an idea. "I can modify the environmental systems," he told Zektar, "but I'll need to completely rebuild the atmospheric processors. It'll take at least 72 hours of non-stop work." "That is too much to ask," Zektar said. "You have already done so much for us," Park shrugged. "It's just engineering. Besides, I like puzzles." For the next 3 days, Park worked without sleeping. He tore apart atmospheric processors, rebuilt circulation systems, and created hybrid environments that could support both human and crystalline biology. Other humans brought him food and coffee, but he barely stopped working long enough to eat. When he was finally done, the crystalline refugees had air they could breathe properly for the first time since the evacuation. Zektar's own body rang with joy as he felt the familiar minerals filling his lungs. "Why did you do this?" Zektar asked Park, who was finally taking a break to sleep. Park looked confused by the question. "You needed help. I knew how to help. What else was I supposed to do?" It was the same thing Commander Chen had said after the first rescue. Zektar was beginning to see that this was how humans thought about everything. If someone needed help and they could provide help, then helping was just the obvious thing to do. The breakthrough came on the 6th day. The human search teams had been working around the clock, matching lost children with separated families. They had created a system using portable computers and handheld scanners to track down relatives across the scattered refugee camps. A human volunteer named Sarah Martinez had been searching for the family of a young ethereal named Viscara for 3 days. The child had been found alone in the ruins of a school on Whisper, and she had been too scared to tell anyone her family name. Martinez did not give up. She showed Viscara's picture to hundreds of refugees. She learned basic ethereal phrases so she could communicate better. She even taught herself to recognize ethereal family resemblances, which was difficult because the aliens all looked very similar to human eyes. Finally, she found them. Vizcara's parents were in a refugee camp on the other side of the system, desperately searching for their daughter. When Martinez brought the family back together, both parents glowed so brightly with joy that everyone in the camp stopped to watch. "Thank you," Vizcara's mother said to Martinez in broken standard speech. "Thank you for bringing back our light." Martinez just smiled. Any parent would have done the same thing, but that was not true. Most species would have given up after a day or two. The scale of the refugee crisis was too big, the chances of success too small. Only humans seemed to believe that every individual life was worth infinite effort. By the end of the first week, the humans had reunited over 300 families. They had also improved the living conditions in all the refugee camps, provided better medical care for the wounded, and organized supply distribution systems that actually worked. The Galactic Council relief ships finally arrived, commanded by Admiral Quellic, a dignified insectoid who had been organizing refugee relief for 40 years. He expected to find chaos, suffering, and despair. Instead, he found refugee camps that were running smoothly, families that had been reunited, and aliens who were healthy and hopeful. "How is this possible?" he asked Commander Chen as they toured the main refugee station. 6 million displaced beings should be a catastrophe. But these people seem comfortable. Chen gestured to where a group of human volunteers were teaching crystalline children how to play human games. "We just tried to take care of them until you got here." Admiral Quellic looked around at the clean, well-organized camps. The humans had turned a disaster into something that actually worked. They had not just kept people alive, no, they had kept them human. Or as human as different alien species could be. "Commander Chen," he said formally, "the Galactic Council owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid." Chen looked uncomfortable with the praise. "We just did what anyone would do." But Admiral Quellic knew better. He had seen refugee crises before. He had seen what happened when different species tried to help each other, but gave up when things got difficult. He had never seen anything like what the humans had accomplished here. As the Council ships began taking over the refugee operation, Zektar stood with Commander Chen on the observation deck of the Defiant. They watched human volunteers saying goodbye to the alien families they had helped. "What will your people do now?" Zektar asked. "Go home, I guess," Chen replied. "Write reports about what happened here. Wait for the next time someone needs help. And if that help requires you to risk your lives again?" Chen smiled. "Then we'll risk our lives again. That's what we do." Zektar watched a human engineer hugging a young crystalline who had grown attached to her during the refugee crisis. The child was crying because she did not want the human to leave. "Your people are remarkable," Zektar said quietly. "No," Chen replied. "We're just people. We do what people should do." But as Zektar watched the humans prepare to leave, he knew that Commander Chen was wrong. The Galactic Council chambers had not seen this much excitement in 50 years. Representatives from hundreds of worlds filled the Great Hall, all talking at once about the humans and their impossible rescue mission. Ambassador Zektar stood at the center of it all, his crystalline body chiming with nervous energy. "Order, order," called Council Chairman Veltak, striking his ceremonial gavel. The ancient wise one's voice echoed through the chamber. "We are here to discuss the recent events in the Kepler system and the actions of the species known as humans." Councillor Drixon, a pompous gas giant dweller, floated forward. "These Deathworlders have acted without Council approval. They interfered in a galactic emergency without proper authorization. This sets a dangerous precedent." Murmurs of agreement rippled through some sections of the chamber. Many council members were still uncomfortable with the idea of aggressive, unpredictable humans operating freely in civilized space. But then Dr. Vexini rose to speak. Her ethereal form glowed bright blue, commanding attention. "Councilors, I was there. I saw what really happened. The humans did not interfere. They saved lives. 6 million lives that would have been lost if we had waited for official approval." Captain Morden stepped forward as well. "The humans risked their own lives repeatedly to save people they had never met. People who were not even the same species. They showed bravery beyond anything I have seen in my 40 years of space service." "Bravery?" scoffed Councillor Greknox, a militant warrior caste being. "Or reckless stupidity. These Deathworlders charge into danger without thinking. They could have caused more harm than good." Zektar could not stay quiet any longer. Counselors, may I share what I learned about human recklessness during our time together? Chairman Veltok nodded. The floor recognizes Ambassador Zektar. Zektar's voice rang clearly through the chamber. I have spent weeks studying human behavior. What we call recklessness, they call calculated risk. Commander Chen did not randomly charge into danger. She studied each situation, weighed the risks against the benefits, and chose to act when action could save lives. He activated a holographic display showing footage from the rescue missions. Watch how they work. Every reckless action is actually carefully planned. When Chief Santos entered the radioactive engine room, she knew exactly how much radiation exposure she could survive. When Commander Chen walked through vacuum to save children, she calculated her oxygen consumption to the minute. The chamber fell silent as they watched humans working in impossible conditions, saving alien lives with skill and precision. Dr. Vexini floated closer to the display. I have been studying this as well. Humans do not fear death less than we do. They fear failure more. They fear letting others die when they could have saved them. She gestured to footage of humans reuniting alien families in the refugee camps. Look at their faces when they succeed in helping someone. This is not the behavior of aggressive conquerors. This is the behavior of beings who find meaning in protecting others. Counselor Drixon was not convinced. But they come from a death world. The databases clearly state that death world species are violent and dangerous. The databases are wrong, said a new voice. Everyone turned to see Admiral Quellick entering the chamber. The experienced insectoid commander's presence commanded immediate respect. Admiral, Chairman Veltok said with surprise, you were not scheduled to address the council. Forgive the interruption, Chairman, but I have urgent information about the humans. Admiral Quellick walked to the center of the chamber. I have spent the last month overseeing refugee operations in the Kepler system. I have worked directly with human personnel, and I must tell you that everything we thought we knew about Deathworld species is incorrect. He activated his own holographic display. Yes, humans come from a dangerous planet. Yes, they are physically tougher than most council species. But what makes them special is not their strength. It is their compassion. The display showed images of human volunteers working in the refugee camps. These beings worked without rest to help strangers. They modified their ships to carry alien species. They learned alien biology to provide medical care. They searched for days to reunite families. This is not the behavior of a violent species. This is the behavior of natural caregivers. Counselor Greknox clicked his mandibles skeptically. Pretty words, Admiral. But we cannot ignore the security implications. These humans have advanced weapons and fast ships. They could be a threat to Council worlds. They could be, Admiral Quellick agreed. But they choose not to be. And that choice reveals their true nature. Dr. Vexini projected her own data into the chamber. I have completed my psychological analysis of human behavior. My findings are remarkable. Humans have evolved what I call protective aggression. They become dangerous only when others are threatened. Their aggression is not directed at conquest or dominance, but at protection and rescue. The data stream showed human stress responses, decision-making patterns, and behavioral analysis. Their death world did not make them violent killers. It made them guardians. When they see suffering, their instinct is not to exploit it, but to stop it. Zektar stepped forward again. Counselors, I propose that we have misunderstood the very concept of death worlds. We assumed that dangerous planets create dangerous species. But what if dangerous planets create species that are good at protecting others from danger? The chamber buzzed with discussion. This was a completely new way of thinking about death world evolution. Chairman Veltok called for order again. These are interesting theories, but we must deal with practical matters. What do we do about the humans? Before anyone could answer, the chamber doors opened again. Commander Sarah Chen walked in, accompanied by a small group of other human officers. They had not been invited, but no one tried to stop them. Counselors, Chen said simply, we heard you were discussing us. The chamber fell silent. Many council members had never seen humans in person before. They were surprised by how normal the humans looked. Not savage or frightening, just tired beings who had been working hard. Chairman Veltok recovered first. Commander Chen, this is most irregular. The council is in session. I apologize for the interruption, Chen replied politely, but we wanted to make an offer before you decide what to do about us. An offer? Chen looked around at all the alien faces staring at her. We know you're concerned about humans operating in council space without supervision. We understand that. So we're proposing a solution. She activated a small holographic projector. We want to establish a joint human council emergency response organization. Mixed crews, shared technology, combined training. When disasters happen, we respond together. The hologram showed plans for ships designed to carry both humans and aliens, training facilities where different species could learn from each other, and emergency protocols that combined human speed with council thoroughness. Councillor Drixon sputtered with indignation. This is outrageous. You cannot simply demand membership in the council. We're not demanding anything, Chen said calmly. We're offering to help. If you don't want our help, we'll go home and leave you alone. But if you want to save more lives in future emergencies, we think we can work together. Dr. Vexini floated forward eagerly. Commander, your proposal is fascinating. But many council species cannot survive in human environments. How would mixed crews function? Chief Santos stepped forward, looking much healthier than she had a month ago. We've been working on that. We think we can design ships with modular life support, different sections with different atmospheres and gravity levels. It's just an engineering problem. And training? Asked Captain Morden, who had been listening intently. We teach you our emergency response techniques, Chen explained. You teach us about different alien biologies and council protocols. Everyone learns from everyone else. Admiral Quellick studied the human proposals with growing excitement. This could revolutionize emergency response across the galaxy. But why are you offering this? What do humans gain? Chen looked at him with surprise. We gain the ability to help more people. Isn't that enough? The chamber erupted in discussion. Some council members were excited by the possibilities. Others were still suspicious of human motives. The debate went on for hours. Finally, Chairman Veltok called for quiet. The council will vote on 3 proposals. First, do we grant humans full membership in the Galactic Council? The vote was unanimous, yes. Second, do we establish the Joint Human Council Emergency Response Organization proposed by Commander Chen? Again, unanimous, yes. Third, do we formally recognize humans as the galaxy's first official guardian species? Zektar was surprised by this third proposal. He had not expected it, but as he thought about it, he realized it was perfect. Guardian species, beings whose primary role was to protect others. The vote was unanimous once more. Yes. As the council session ended and representatives began filing out, Zektar approached Commander Chen. Congratulations, he said. Humanity now has full council membership and an official role as our protectors. How do you feel? Chen smiled tiredly. Honored, and a little nervous. This is a big responsibility. Will your people accept it? Are you kidding? Chen laughed. When we tell them we get to help save people across the entire galaxy,